from, who is this? The New York Times, who I have heard are basically the source of all the propaganda cancer from the press, that most of the other press organizations just follow them. They say it turns out the deep state is actually kind of awesome, they say. Whereas it's worse, it's an opinion piece. Yes, well, they all are, in fact. So let me begin by saying, just from the title, there is a tendency that I've noticed, and many of you have noticed as well, that our opponent will gradually permit ideas that we have stated to become mainstream on their terms. It's very smart for them to do this, but it means that anyone with a decent memory looks at the conspiracy theorist and says, they were right about almost everything. Even the mainstream agrees now that they reword it and reconjugate it and repackage it. But yes, it turns out that what our side has been saying for the last 80 years at least, and some smaller portion before the sort of modern culture war have been saying for decades, a lot of it has been true. Possibly almost all of it. And here's the latest example, potentially. This is the same thing as when the lab leak theory started to be confirmed by the mainstream. We knew the lab leak was the most likely theory within a few months of COVID hitting the scene. It took 3 years, roughly, for the rest of the world to admit it. Even now, there's some still debate on it. No, it was a lab leak. Whether it was deliberately leaked or not is the only question we don't yet know the answer to on that. So yeah, again, ahead of the curve. We're not the only ones, but I think Cabal's done pretty well. And here, again, deep state. A term which, did Trump coin that? I don't think so, but he certainly used it. He helped to popularize the term. As America closes in on a major election, note, during this major battle of democracy, this major year, the UK and the US will both have an election. We always knew, we knew for several years that 2024 will be a huge deciding year for the US, and it will be. The fact that the UK is also having an election this year, oh boy, this year is going to be nuts, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, Meatbun, 2016 was not a general election here, but it did have the Brexit referendum, which was also a major. This time it's 2 general elections, and 2 very contentious ones too. Both differently structured, both very interesting, both with a great potential for success, and both, in my opinion, going in a good direction. As America closes in on a major election, mistrust is brewing around the mysterious government entity that's now denounced in scary-sounding terms. The deep state and the swamp. What do these words even mean? Who exactly do they describe? So this is for leftists who might accidentally hear something Trump says where Trump means a specific thing by these words, and he's taken the time to explain it in the past. So now the left have to jump in and give their definition so that someone who on the left just accidentally hears these terms instead associates it with what the left wants them to associate it with. It's devious propagandizing. It's smart, but it's devious, and it's, of course, deceptive. What they're going to say here is going to try to pose the deep state and the swamp in a favorable light, obviously, from the headline. The truth is that they are named accurately. They're acting against their mandate and against the interests of the American people. The same thing here as well, same thing in many countries, just different names, different groups, same motives. They say, we went on a road trip to find out. You didn't need to. They say, as we met the Americans who are being dismissed as public enemies, we discovered that they are us. Yes, literally, the New York Times is part of the deep state. At the very least, aides of it, pawns of it, collaborators with it, even if not technically part of it. They like Taylor Swift, he says. Well, that's a weird one to mention, given that she's been proposed somewhat jovially as being part of government schemes and then denied to be by the Pentagon, which is really weird. They dance bachata, whatever the fuck that means. They go to bed at night watching Star Trek reruns. Do they? Do you mean Discovery reruns? Or the good ones? They go to work and do their jobs, saving us from Armageddon. Yeah, this is going to be a puff piece, isn't it? The funny thing is, probably what they're going to list here is mostly normal government workers. What they're going to list here is the shallow state. Just the normal people that happen to be, like, government workers. Ignoring the actual deep state and the swamp. It's over, by the way, guys. It's over. We have, like, documented evidence that bribery is normal in politics. Jeff DeWitt and Carrie Lake. That's a new era of political discourse because now we have audible proof that that happens. You can't just say, oh, there is no swamp. Look, these street sweepers are actually nice people. No, it's over. We know that there is bribery in politics. We suspected for years. We had strong indications for years. Now we know that there is. And by extension from that, we know how it's done. And by extension from that, we know that any politician who was mysteriously part of a board on any major corporation is corrupt. Which is a lot of them. Aside from that, we know that anyone that does really well in the stock market is also corrupt. Which is a lot of them, including a lot of Republicans, by the way. But no MAGA Republicans, as far as I know. Different breed. They say, sure, our tax dollars pay them. But as you'll see in the video above, what a return to our investment we get. It's going to show videos of government workers doing things that the private sector could also do, isn't it? By the way, not everything the government does could also be done by the private sector reasonably. I think there are some things. But a sprawling and bloated government is going to be doing a lot of things the private sector should be doing. When we hear deep state, instead of recoiling, we should rally, they say. That's pretty naked without the context, but that is what you're asking people to do. The deep state means the state which hides from accountability despite being paid by the people they're accountable to, acting against their interests. And you're saying that you should rally behind it. Well, of course, the New York Times would say that. It fits the pattern. But being so brazen about it beckons people who already agree with you to also already agree with the deep state. We should think about the workers, otherwise known as our public servants, the everyday superheroes who wake up ready to dedicate their careers and their lives to serving us. Holy shit, that is so blatantly fallatory. Who is buying that it's this rosy? They say, these are the Americans we employ. Even though their work is often invisible, it makes our lives better. Often invisible. Okay, now there's invisible because no one cares, and there's invisible because they're hiding their crimes. I assume that you are talking about the former and pretending that that means what we refer to with the latter. The deep state refers to the criminal ones, the unethical ones, the corrupt ones. But you are shoving the street sweepers in their place and saying, look, they're fine, they're nice people. They say, but if Donald Trump is re-elected and enacts Schedule F, that could change. Oh no! He would have the power to eviscerate the so-called deep state and replace our public servants with people who work for him, not us. What? How? What does that mean? What, are you proposing that Donald Trump is going to pay them personally? Or are you saying that he's going to replace them with different government workers? Which is normal. Mass layoffs of government organizations happen sometimes, and mass hirings. What about the 87,000 IRS workers that were hired under Biden? Do you think they work for Trump? Do you think they work for us? Or do you think they work for the government, which is currently Biden's government? No, if anything, Trump is going to remove the positions. That's what he said he's going to do. He hasn't said it as hard as Vivek, but Vivek's probably going to be his VP. And Vivek said he wouldn't be the VP unless Trump agrees to do that, so he probably will do that. Afrera. If anything, Trump will remove those positions. Then there'll be more for the free market to do, and those people can get a job in the free market more easily, I hope. Sucks for the individuals, I grant. But as a collective venture, it is well worth it to remove those positions, especially the really corrupt ones. But the redundant ones, the ones that aren't necessary, yes, afuera, but higher priority, delete the institutions that are corrupt, the deep state ones. They say, in the video above, you'll meet a few of our hard-working American public servants, and we hope you'll agree that they're not scary at all. In fact, they're kind of awesome, he says, or the article says. Okay.
Donald Trump is obsessed with the deep state.
The deep state is destroying our nation.
Either the deep state destroys America or we destroy the deep state.
And many Republicans are widening his paranoia.
These unelected bureaucrats ruining this country.
From a cabal of security agents to
the sick political class that hates our country.
If elected, Trump's vowed to gut the federal government.
Reinstate the Schedule F executive order and, quote, fire rogue bureaucrats.
But who are these bureaucrats and what makes them so dangerous? We needed answers, so we took a trip across America.
In 100 yards, take...
I don't know how to describe it exactly, but this idea of we needed to we like go to a place to answer this question. We took a road trip, like they're trying to be relatable. Like this personal story, they're trying to gain our trust. I don't know. Just seems like a tactic. Then again, all of this is, isn't it? We're working with propaganda here.
The exit.
In search of the people.
I mean, let's be clear. This is essentially the deep state saying we have investigated ourselves and found ourselves to be good, actually, via their mouthpiece of the New York Times. If anything, this proves Trump's point.
People behind this threatening entity.
Right. Let's see if they pick actual deep state members or shallow state members.
First stop, Huntsville, Alabama. Sure looks like some nefarious government activity happens around here.
Marshall Space Flight Center. Has anyone claimed that they are part of the deep state? Nerds building rockets aren't really the problem. What did I say? What did I say? That they're going to be picking examples of people who are state workers, but not the deep state. I was going to say, why don't you go to DC? I should have said it. Because they went here, because they picked the best example of government employees they can think of, but not the deep state. No one thinks, unless there's something I've missed and the Marshall Space Flight Center is actually hiding a dark secret. What did I say earlier? It's my silly example, street sweepers. Right, this is just the other end of that. It's just as silly, it's just that it's less, more glamorous. This is nerds building rockets. If any government agency should be given more power and more direction and more influence and more hype, it's the nerds making rockets. It's NASA and the space flights and whatever else. This is where you went. Did you go there and ask the nerds making rockets, hey, so guys, are you corrupt, evil bastards working to destroy America from within? And they said, that's funny. No, of course not. Because they're not. They build rockets. Is that what we're going to see in this video? Holy shit, this is a good start.
You have reached your destination.
Annual budget $5 billion. That's not an insignificant amount for a government, but it's not that much. Military budget is like 700 billion or something. It may be more than that, but 8 billion or 5 billion, whatever it was you said. It's not insignificant, but it's not that much. It's like, what's the FBI's budget? You interview them and find out.
Meet Scott Bellamy.
I am a mission manager in the Planetary Missions Program Office.
He drives a Nissan Titan 4x4. He's loved Star Trek since he was a kid.
Of course I have a favorite character. It's either Captain Kirk or Mr. Spock.
And he may
It's literally the most obvious two answers, but fine, whatever.
have quite literally saved the planet from annihilation.
Potentially.
You see, Scott managed a mission called
The Double Asteroid Redirection Test.
And back in 2022, his team used your tax dollars to pull off something kind of incredible.
You have an asteroid and you have a spacecraft, and you fly the spacecraft into the asteroid and try to change the trajectory of that asteroid. It's like,
clearly this is the problem. Clearly, this is what Trump's complaining about. This is such childish propaganda. Holy shit. I can't believe they went this low, that they're this deceptive. This is like you've got the FBI. Like, forgive me for the extravagance of the metaphor, but given what they're doing, you've got this guy who's under accusation sitting there eating a corpse of an innocent American, let's say, eating a corpse. People look at him and saying, that's wrong. And he says, whoa, hold on a second. That nerd over there playing with rockets, he's fine. So leave me alone. That is what we are seeing right now in real time. It's incredible that they're going this blatant with it. Clearly, Trump is in league with the asteroid. Clearly. I don't doubt they actually honestly believe that.
playing pool in space. Everybody was holding their breath. This is the moment of truth.
Yeah, this was a really, I think I read about this really cool science thing that happened. Why is it in this video? This is not the deep state. This is the deep space state. If anything, it's not even deep space. It's local system.
Did we hit it?
We got it?
And we have impact.
They knocked an asteroid off its course, proving something that had previously...
What movie is that? Is that Armageddon? What movie is this footage from?
Armageddon.
Yeah, I thought so. What does this have to do with anything? This is some serious editorializing. New York Times. This is short of that. What was it? 11 films or whatever it was. The really over the top anti-Trump propaganda. This has got to be the weakest and most ridiculous propaganda I have seen during the culture war from like a major group. This is so blatantly shit. What? You like science nerd stuff? Well, you should hate Trump because he hates nerds. He hates NASA. Forget the fact that he created Space Force, which, by the way, does need to exist. I want to reiterate that. It's a real issue. There does need to be an organization that deals with that.
previously only been done in movies.
Saving the world from an Armageddon scenario, potentially.
Literally, chat, what are they going to do next? Who are they going to talk to next? Is it literally going to be street sweepers? Was I literally, in my ridiculous example, when I predicted this, did I predict it that specifically? In an example that I thought was so ridiculous it couldn't possibly be true, they've just done the nerds playing with rockets. Are they now going to do the actual street sweepers? I haven't watched this in advance, by the way. And by the way, it looks like it's not going to have the full clip here, unfortunately. We're going to have to find another source for it, but this is a good start.
Next, we traveled deep into the swamp itself, Washington, D.C.
Okay, that's a good start. Where are you going to go? Environmental Protection Agency Office of Water. And your budget for $180 billion. Okay, there's potential here. But the thing is, the problems with the EPA would be the things that you're not going to show. It's not like every inch of it is going to be a problem, and you're going to be able to show an example where they did something useful. But I don't doubt that they've caused as much problems, or have caused enough problems that the organization shouldn't exist. And that's even beyond the point. Like, before you talk about the basic premise of why their organization exists, climate change. The problem with that is 96% of the data is bunk for the heat of the earth. What? Yeah. Once you accept that, and there's data on that, good data on that. Once you have seen that, that's all you need to have significant doubt in the whole narrative. It benefits corporations and governments. It benefits China. It is significantly deleterious to the West. The majority of the data gathered at the ground level is bunk. Other methods of gathering that same data produce results which do not show climate change. With those things being true, the whole picture makes sense even if you assume that every scientist involved is doing good work. That makes sense. That's it. That ends it. Where it says water regulation is the only good part of the EPA, the rest is breathtakingly corrupt. I'll take your word for it, Wes, about the EPA.
You have arrived.
This is Radhika Fox.
I am the assistant administrator for water at the...
Now, I hate to assume this, but this is what has happened. This is what has been done by these policies. Was she a diversity hire? We'll probably never know. And neither does she. Kind of hate that they're using cool science shit to defend their massively corrupt global criminal network. But that is a grievance that's going to have to wait because it's second to so many other worse things, I'm afraid. Right, back to the EPA.
This is Radhika Fox.
I am the assistant administrator for water at the Environmental Protection Agency.
She loves Pilates, making salads, and watching the Taylor Swift Eras Tour on TV with her family.
I think we're all pretty 1989.
Oh, and she led an operation to make our drinking water lead-free in 10 years.
That's the dream.
Worried and angry about lead contamination, residents of Newark, New Jersey are demanding bottled water and answers.
Lead is a neurotoxin that can cause irreversible brain damage. Folks are drinking out of these pipes right now.
Every single American child will soon be able to turn on that faucet and their moms and dads know that the water they're drinking is clean.
This is such a no-brainer. As Wes and others say, and as I would say even not knowing much about this situation, how the hell are there still lead pipes anywhere in the first world? How the hell have successive governments not done anything about this? Even if I take you at your word that this is your genuine intention and you're working towards it, how the hell did previous Democrat governments and Republican governments not do anything about this? Field says, lead-contaminated pipes are the government's fault. The government laid the pipes, mostly on the east coast of the US. Yeah, well, government laying the pipes wouldn't, like, the Romans' government laid the lead pipes they used too. But they, well, I don't think the Romans ever fixed it, actually. But if that were to be fixed, it would be by the government as well, most likely. As you have a very libertarian system. But the fact that they laid it, then again, when they laid it, I bet they knew it was a neurotoxin already, didn't they? I don't know. When did we discover that? I think in the 1900s is when we discovered it was a neurotoxin. Honestly, not see if they actually have lead pipes in, especially metropolitan areas, that would bloody explain it, yeah. Now that's a point. If you're focusing on an issue, if there's a problem that you want to continue being a problem, what is the first thing that you would do? Well, option A, ignore it. Okay, maybe that works. But then if it's big enough, if it's dangerous enough, someone will notice and try and solve it themselves. You don't want that. Option B, pretend to be the one overarching, right and responsible group tasked with and able to solve it, and then do nothing. That's much cleverer. Not only do you get credit for simply being there, saying that you're going to do it, you get to throw money at the people saying that, and you get to deflect any attempts to solve it separately. Man, that's smart on all fronts. You get all the benefits there. All you got to do is maintain the appearance of doing something about it. Hope no one notices. And then rig elections when they notice. So I don't know if that's what's happening, but from what people in chat are saying and from what I know about the deep state, yeah, I suspect that's what's happening. Retrofitting a whole last building is very costly, but the budget should go to this point. If there's lead pipes anywhere, that is so bad. So bad. It should be a priority to everyone. Like, I would sooner that you not have pipes than that you have lead pipes. Not having pipes means that you know you have to get water some other way. Having lead pipes means that you are pumping poison into every house that uses them. Just hack the pipes apart. I'd be happy for vigilantes to do that. Lead is nasty stuff if it gets into your brain. Just get people with axes or whatever to hack the pipes apart if they're made of lead and cast them into the sea, or not the sea, but cast them into a skip, into a big fire. Sell them as radiation shielding, whatever. Just get rid of it. Again, you should prefer that there be no pipe than a lead pipe. Melt them down and sell them to China. Yeah, as pipes. No.
When President Biden announced a nationwide plan to remove lead water pipes, Radhika's team made it happen.
Yep, that's.
Did they? So it succeeded. Wow. They removed all the lead pipes. Oh, maybe we misunderestimated them. Bush quote there. Maybe misunderestimated. Maybe they've done it. Well done, Radhika Fox. You removed every single lead pipe in the country. Hey, well overdue, but well done for doing that. Let's see what she says.
Water utilities would be legally required to replace all remaining lead pipes.
$9 million in 10 years or less.
It's an expensive bet.
$50 billion. But those benefits are truly priceless.
Okay, so you haven't done it yet. Never mind. You've made it so that people have to do it for $50 billion. Well, it's a lot of money. It is worth it if that's what you're doing, but I don't trust you. That's the problem. That's where it comes down to. That's the deep state problem here. What are you not telling us?
Because it's the well-being of this nation that's at stake.
You want to replace your own water pipes? You got the skills to launch an asteroid-deflecting spacecraft? No. That's why your tax dollars pay experts like Radhika and Scott. Important work.
I mean, are you aware of the notion that, like, people can organize together, find experts, and fund them independently? I grant that these are examples that probably should be done by the state. Probably. But they don't have to be. You're asking, viewer, are you a rocket specialist and a plumber? Not likely. But I bet there's a few people out there who said yes to one of those questions. Frankly, if my pipes had been lead for decades, I would not wait for the government to do something about it. Can you replace your own pipes? Yes, with this axe. Or with this whatever, with this pickaxe, or whatever I need. If you're already paying someone to, they are obligated to. If you're not, then you find someone else who will do it. The problem is, if the people you're paying don't do it, and you don't have a choice to stop paying them, that is a scam. And if the government's not doing it, then the government are scamming you. Essentially. That's the thing. Any support I have of taxes is predicated on the notion that they actually do what they say they are. They do what they should be doing. I'm tempted to support a notion that taxes could be in part optional if the government is not doing what they say they're doing. You should have some power there, rather than none at all. And the only thing the thing that solves that currently is the democratic process, which I think does generally solve it, at least eventually. The election rigging is the only reason it hasn't already been solved. So, could the viewer, the average viewer of this video, do that themselves? No, but could the people in these groups do it as part of a private enterprise? Of course they could. But that's not even the question here. We're going into the weeds here of, should a state exist? Should a state pay people to do things that are in the interest of the people? Sure, maybe. To some extent, yes. But that's not the point. When Trump said to deep state, he's not complaining about water and asteroids. He's complaining about international, criminal, globalist organizations, anti-human population control. All this stuff that they have admitted to themselves has been proven. Global conspiracies. That's the problem. With organizations that are taking people's money and then using it against their interests. That's what he's complaining about, and nothing you've said so far approaches that. It's like saying, what do you mean the Hillary Clinton Foundation is doing some evil things? Look, they gave money to this homeless man just now. Therefore, it's misdirection. It's exactly what these fact-checking organizations always do. It's one of the few tactics they use. It's like when, with the best evidence of election rigging from 2020, the video footage showing the clear examples of election rigging, the fact checkers for that debunked something irrelevant related to that part of the footage, but not really that important. They debunked that and ignored the rest. It is a form of containment. It's pretending to have covered the topic. And people are likely to trust that you have because you covered it to some degree. They must think, well, they covered it, I guess there must be nothing to it, without realizing that there's areas they just ignored. The people researching it surely must have known that as well. Willing propagandists at these companies, not just the editor deciding what gets published, strategically, but the entire company full of propagandists. That's what it has to be. Where it says the main issue is that the EPA has had to resort to funding entire pipe network replacement projects, and that money going to the pockets of corrupt local politicians. Whenever the government pays for something, they're almost always getting a worse deal than the free market could get. The reason to have the government pay for it is if the free market would not naturally supply that thing, which I think there are some things that it wouldn't, or some things it would be too slow to do so with, or some things that it's wise to collectivize. Not many things, but some. But it's still going to be less efficient. Now, again, as I was saying, in the current state of things, and especially in any corrupt government, you are going to have massive embezzlement. And that's probably why it's costing $50 billion. Problem with that is these states have known about the issue for over 50 years and they have done nothing. Something isn't that hard. You have to find out pretty quickly whether you've fucked it. That's true. Yeah.
Like this is happening all over America. From helping 2 million victims of the opioid crisis to engineering major breakthroughs in nuclear fusion.
Hold on a second.
From helping 2 million victims.
Megan Meacham, Department of Health.
Of the opioid crisis.
The opioid crisis is manufactured and proliferated by the US government and forces allied to it, like the pharmaceutical companies. The government is letting in fentanyl across the border, and the pharmaceutical companies are supplying people with addictive substances to get them hooked on it to increase their profits. I mean, they could use weed as a painkiller. It's probably better than morphine, but they don't. They use morphine, which is addictive and worse. And where do all these drugs, illegal drugs, come from originally? From places which, in many cases, the CIA controls, and also from China. So, again, a token gesture to give crack pipes to addicts, or some shit, whatever they're talking about here, is a drop in the ocean compared to what the same government is doing to create and maintain the issue in the first place. That is the deep state that you should have investigated, you facts.
To engineering major breakthroughs in nuclear fusion.
What did these two actually do? Nuclear fusion is really cool. It's nowhere near ready yet, but it's really cool. Actually, I'm related to someone who made some breakthroughs in nuclear fusion. Really cool stuff. But does it help the average person very much? Not really. Even when it's done, it'll take ages for the effects to really reach the average person. It is good, and it will eventually revolutionize power generation. But does it do much for people right now? Will it do much for people even when it is ready and implemented? It'll take ages for it to really be felt, I think. It'll take 10 years, even after it's implemented, for it to be felt, at least. So this is not a major deal right now. There are bigger issues right now than this. This is not something you should be crediting. But again, when people say there are elements of the government who are hugely corrupt and cooperating with foreign governments, non-governmental organizations, and corporations to control the fate of people, to make their lives worse, to embezzle money and enrich themselves at the expense of everything else, and you say, yeah, but some of the government money is going towards nerds who did some cool things. Oh, okay, well, who cares?
And helping make hearing aids affordable for 30 million people.
Okay, whenever you tell me the government has helped make something affordable, what you mean is they have subsidized it, which is a form of inflation. The way that you make something affordable is getting the government out of it, letting the free market competition do the work. That is the force that reduces prices in a way that is not artificial. Price fixing fucks up the market, gives way too much power to government, and in many cases causes inflation. By the way, the FDA, speaking of which, was the organization who was way too rushed in accepting the COVID vaccines, which may have killed more than COVID itself. 1 in 1,000 people, by some studies, died as a result of the vaccines, not of COVID. The COVID numbers are grossly exaggerated, in case you didn't know.
Yep, the deep state is hard at work, making America great. Just because we don't know about it doesn't make it suspicious.
You have arrived.
This is such blatant, childish propaganda. I can scarcely believe, like, this is one of the few things I would have guessed this would be, and it's actually what I said before the stream, the street sweepers thing. But that was a joke. I was joking, New York Times. You weren't supposed to actually do it.
Our final stop, Chicago, Illinois. Meet Nancy Alcantara.
I am the acting director of enforcement for the Wage and Hour Division for the Midwest Regional Office for the U.S. Department of Labor. I had to take a break.
If your title takes more than 4 words, or more than 10 seconds to, or more than, let's say, 5 seconds to say, shorten it. Find a way. That's not just you personally for how you describe it. That is, the institution should work to make sure the titles are not a paragraph unto themselves. I hate that because I have to read them out every time I read an article. She has an I Heart Meetings mug. Is this person just bureaucracy as a person?
Breath, yes.
She still eats Lucky Charms for breakfast, trains for marathons, and loves Latin dancing.
Cumbia, bachata, cha-cha-cha, you name it, I did it.
And she uses your tax dollars to get kids out of working in dangerous slaughterhouses.
13, 14, 15-year-olds working on the kill floor, cleaning body parts, right? Animal carcasses. They're working with machinery such as skull splitters, bone splitters.
Nancy and her colleagues raided slaughterhouses.
I'm not sure I believe you. That doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound real. For one thing, the pictures that you showed me there were the same person. That's the same place. PSSI on the helmet. That's probably the same person, just a different hat on a different day. This is not 2 examples. This is 2 pictures of the same person on the same day. Now, child labor is a bit of a dodgy issue because if a child wants to do this, I'm not sure I want to stand in their way, especially if they're like 16, let's say. Still, there are some jobs I would say maybe don't let them do, like this, but also if it's like a family thing, I'd be hard-pressed to come into the government and say, nope, verboten, not allowed. So I don't know. This is not a huge issue. Like, people should be able to choose that for themselves, for their own child. If they want to expose them to animal carcasses, I wouldn't advise it. But I don't really want the government stepping in and saying no. If it's a family thing, if it's your child, fine. And if you know the guy that runs the company and you want your child to be involved, again, as the government, as a responsible government, I'd be hard-pressed to say, ban that practice. The issue with child labor is more so if it becomes normalized, then children kind of have to. No, I'm not sure that's even true. It sort of seems to be in the past, but as I said, it's kind of a rough issue because the free market should generally solve these things. Perhaps the problem is not really the child labor, it's something else. But besides that, I don't buy your story. I think there's something more to this. PSSI are food safety experts, apparently. Children yearn for the coal mines. The issue of consent is primary. If they can consent to work near acid, what else can they consent to? Needs to be a very clear, very limited scope of things we admit children consent to. Access to labor. Sure, AC. Thing is, like, there's a odd grey zone there with counting what is labor. If your child's helping out around the house, are they now if you're chopping logs and you get your child to help you, like 13, 14, you teach them basic skills. Are they now lumber engineers, whatever the term would be, unpaid lumber engineers? There's a grey zone there. Now, this is probably pretty clearly in their actual employees zone. But again, if it's like a family business and the kid is there doing it, again, I'm not sure the government should intervene with that. The US is supposed to be very libertarian. Not sure either way. Feels as children should learn while they're young. Maybe some limitations, perhaps. Difference between giving them an axe and putting them in charge of a buzzsaw. Yeah, the example wasn't great because it does involve, like, dangerous equipment. But there are plenty of jobs that don't. Over 100 children illegally employed by US slaughterhouse cleaning. What's this? Lack of sanitation. That is weird. It looks like that's the same article, actually. Let's have a look. Let's give them their due, see if this is accurate. Again, like the asteroid thing and the water thing, it may well be that you're doing good things. Maybe. We don't know with the water, really, but... Still, though, this doesn't seem right. This seems like there's something more to this story. Labour Department investigation finds Packer Sanitation Services, Inc. employed children between ages of 13 and 17 in 8 states. What is the extra dimension to this story? It doesn't seem normal. More than 100 children have been discovered to be illegally employed by a slaughterhouse cleaning firm across the country, federal authorities said. The Department of Labor announced that a federal investigation found a Wisconsin-based Packer Sanitation Services, Inc. employed at least 102 children, ranging from 13 to 17 years old, to work overnight shifts at 13 meat processing facilities in 8 states. The investigation discovered that children were working with hazardous chemicals and cleaning meat processing equipment, including back saws, brisket saws, and head splitters. At least 3 minors suffered injuries while working for PSSI, one of the country's largest food safety sanitation service providers. This is insane. How did this happen? The states in which where were their parents? The states in which the children were employed include Arkansas, Colorado, Indiana, Kansas, etc., etc. The processor which had the largest number of employed minors is JBS Foods, with 27 children employed, followed by Cargill Inc., which had 26 children employed. Other processors include Tyson Food, which you had a story about them today, actually, George's Inc., Buckhead Meat of Minnesota, etc., etc. According to court documents, a 14-year-old child who worked at a Nebraska facility from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. Where were his parents? This is overnight. Were they orphans? 5 to 6 days a week from December 2021 to April 2022, cleaned machines used to cut meat. At one point, the child fell asleep in class and also missed class after suffering injuries as a result of chemical burns. Several other children were also reported to have suffered from chemical burns. The Department of Labor assessed PSSI $15,000 for each minor-aged employee who was employed in violation of the law. According to the news release, PSSI has paid $1.5 million in civil money penalties. If this is clear-cut exactly as it sounds, this is horrible. This is much worse than 15 grand per child, 1.5 million overall. What else is happening here? The child labor violations in this case were systemic and reached across 8 states and clearly indicate a corporate-wide failure by Packer Sanitation Services at all levels, said Jessica Lumen, the department's principal deputy administrator of the Wage and Hour Division. These children should never have been employed in meatpacking plants, and this can only happen when employers do not take responsibility to prevent child labor violations from occurring in the first place. This is really odd. This just keeps getting weirder. Meanwhile, Michael Lazary, a Chicago-based regional administrator with the Labor Department, said that when the Wage and Hour Division arrived with warrants, the adults who had recruited, hired, and supervised these children tried to derail our efforts to investigate their employment practices. During fiscal year 2022, there was a 37% increase in child labor law violations across the country, with at least 688 children working in dangerous conditions. I expect this is the worst example of them. Still, it's very yeah. As AC says, there is something huge being omitted here. This is very odd. Squizzle says they're not legals. That could explain it. The kid in the image that before looked white, but he could have just been Hispanic. Despite the Department of Labor's warnings that child labor violations have increased since 2015, Republican lawmakers across the country have in recent months been pushing for the expansion of the types of improved work as well as work hours. I doubt they've been pushing for kids in slaughterhouses, guys. It's very devious putting this on the back of talking about kids in slaughterhouses. As I said, there's a grey area there where child labor, quote unquote, is something that you probably should want. Not pushing them up chimneys, but having them help around, help at home in ways that are not, in ways that you might otherwise employ someone to do. Quote, now there are states that want to go back towards that direction to deal with labor shortages by using teens, even to the extent of placing them in dangerous work environments. It doesn't make sense. It's disregarding their welfare. You shouldn't be putting them in dangerous environments. If Republicans are arguing for that, I disagree to that extent. Reed Mackey, Director of Child Labour Issues at Coordinator at the Child Labour Coalition, told The Guardian. That's the end of the article. There is something else going on here. This is very odd. The fact that they only had one picture. Wait, where did I put the video? That they only have one kid here, it looks like. Different days, different coloured hat, but this is very odd. Still, if this was really happening, this is, again, something the government did that probably was good, if it's as it appears on the surface level, which it probably isn't. But this is not the problem we're talking about with the deep state.
Animal carcasses. They're working with machinery such as skull splitters, bone
This is just examples of the machinery.
Splitters.
Nancy and her colleagues raided slaughterhouses in several states and found more than 100 children working illegally. Last year, their employer, Packers Sanitation, was fined $1.5 million, one of the largest child labor cases in American history.
That is not very much money for how severe this sounds.
Kids would die, kids would get limbs amputated. I don't even want to imagine what would happen if no one did this job.
How long was this happening before you investigated? I wonder, because again, to make the point we made before, would a private organization, or an organization that's not funded by the federal government, for example, have done better here? How long did it take you to deal with this? Because if kids are getting their limbs amputated and coming into school, falling asleep and getting chemical burns, one, where are their parents? Two, if they're illegals, where is the federal government for preventing them coming in? Three, how long did it take to notice? Why didn't you notice sooner? It sounds like there were bloody obvious signs. How did it take so long? I don't know how long it took. But this is again the problem. You solved it. Well done. Well, you didn't solve the lead pipes. The asteroid thing is cool as hell, but doesn't really change much on the ground. I don't think it would have hit the Earth. And the labor thing, it sounds like a really weird exception, really weird edge case, but how long did it take you to deal with it? Again, even with these examples, we can find significant problems. And these are just basic government workers. Not necessarily basic, but these are like surface level. Probably not conspiracy-involved government workers. Or if they are, they're hiding it. Yeah, exactly. No mention of the FBI, CIA, ATF. Yeah, when Trump talks about deep state, he's saying that asteroid didn't do nothing. That's the problem. Yes, lead pipes. Yes, children in skull splitters. That's what he's talking about when he's complaining about the deep state, isn't it? These three. This kind of issue. That's what he's talking. No, he's talking about the FBI, CIA, ATF, as Keith said. He's talking about like almost all of the DC Congress and everything around them. He's talking about many other institutions which you did not even mention, let alone investigate. You just went on a nice little tour to three innocent, unassuming areas of government to imply that all Trump has a problem with is money being spent on government projects. And even in your attempts to do that, you've given us some very shaky examples.
These guys work for you, but Trump wants them working for him.
what the fuck does that mean? If they work for the president, then they're working for Biden. If they work for you, they'll still work for you under Trump. Are you saying that Biden just wants to let them keep doing good things, but Trump wants to make them do evil things? Have you got any reason to actually state that? Are you going to give us any sort of clue as to why you think that? Or are you just going to assert it now? It's just a nice little soundbite.
Trump wants to fire at least thousands of these people that he calls pejoratively the deep state.
This is such blatant propaganda. You set up, here's 3 shining examples. Ignore the seething rot that I'm pushing off the screen right now. Here's 3 shining examples of state employees. By the way, Trump wants to fire thousands of state employees. Yeah, it's the seething rot he wants to deal with. I'll say it again, this is such simplistic, blatant, naked propaganda. I wouldn't even have guessed they would be this shallow.
Schedule F would allow Trump to fire up to 50,000 of them and replace them with like-minded people.
Just like Biden did, except he did 87,000 in the IRS alone. Didn't fire first, he just expanded it. That's just the IRS. Never mind the fact that that's just the expansion. Regardless, the millions who already work for the government. Firing 50,000 is not a big difference from how it is right now. Depending on where you do the firing, of course. Reducing the size of government should be a common aspiration of all Americans. That's the point of your country. Not necessarily, AC, not necessarily. The image that the general Democratic side wants to put across is that they're just kind of neutral and decent people. They don't really care. Meanwhile, Trump is over here trying to do everything evil. What they're trying to purvey here is that the Democratic Party is the party of, we're just trying to remove the lead pipes. We're just trying to prevent the children from child labor laws. We're just trying to send probes up at comets. We're just trying to do all the normal stuff, business as usual. Normal stuff is Democrats. The problem is that actually it's the exact opposite. The normal stuff is exactly what the Republicans want to try to protect, whilst removing the rot the Democrats are hiding. PSSI claimed in court that rogue individuals hired the children and that they had fake IDs and social security numbers that passed the government's E-Verify system. Ooh, that's suspicious. Oh, that's a story right there. That's something I would maybe even go into if we have time, chat.
Sometimes it's really hard to read the newspaper where, you feel like we as public servants are being attacked.
Now, this does...
Oh, boo-hoo. Meanwhile, the people are being consistently attacked by the deep state, which you did not mention, address, attempt to understand the meaning of at any point in this video. You misdirected and then accused on the basis of that lie.
Doesn't mean that Americans can't have different ideas about how big the federal government should be. After all, there's no shortage of examples of real government overreach and overspend. But Trump's...
It's interesting that you are willing to admit that, because nothing that you've said in this video suggests that Trump would change the allegiance of the government workers. How does that even work anyway? That you can put people in positions of power who you trust in government positions, but most governments do that, and Trump is not talking about replacing them. He's just talking about removing the positions themselves. The only person that is potentially doing that is Democrats. Expanding these positions, adding more power to the institutions, which Republicans claim are already controlled by them. You did not investigate that claim.
It's teaching us to expect the worst from people in government, when the truth is, they're actually some of our best.
Even that is very debatable. A bloated government is going to contain mostly people that would fail in the private sector. And the US government, sorry to say it, is probably the most political government in history. It's certainly the biggest government in history. So, again, I don't think it even bears repeating again, but Trump is not talking about these people. He's talking about the evil people you ignored in this video. Thiel says the Chinese government is bigger, but only because it nationalizes so many businesses and has commissars in so many ostensibly private companies. That may be true. Yeah, that may be true. Yeah, that was an appalling abortion of propaganda. I can scarcely believe that they were that shallow. But hey, good production values and, shall we say, surface level effective rhetorical propaganda will convince some people. But God, how stupid do you have to be convinced by that? Again, you have to have never heard Trump talking about the deep state. You have to have only heard what's been said in this.